I've finally finished redesigning all 10 of the 2025 Formula 1 car liveries. We're ending on a high. Last season's driver's title winning Red Bull car, obviously piloted by Max and alongside Liam Lawson this year. Let's take a look at the real thing on track. We've had day one of testing already. Let's also have a relook at all of the liveries because renders can clearly be very, very deceptive. I'm going to have to change some rankings, and let's have a go at redesigning it, creating something new, maybe even better. Oh yeah, and you're going to get a little spoiler about something very, very special coming very, very soon if you stick around. My name's Tomo. Let's talk about it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. McLaren got the memo. Aston Martin did not. Fortunately, Red Bull have stayed put. It's a banger of a livery, a modern classic, no question. Very, very simple. It's a dark navy kind of matte finish car with the bright Red Bull branding on the nose, on the airbox, the big Red Bull on the front wing. That's basically it. Okay, it hasn't changed for years. Fundamentally, it hasn't changed for years and years and years. Sponsors have come and gone. Red Bull had more prominence in the past on the side pod. Now it's more Oracle, but even then, it still maintained that inherent identity. Red Bull do marketing incredibly well, and it speaks volumes with this. Honestly, I've got not much to say about this at all because it hasn't really changed. It's always been great. People get bored of seeing the same thing over and over again, but they can say that about the Marlboro McLaren, which was the same livery from McLaren for year after year after year. It becomes a modern classic. I'm sure Red Bull will change it up at some point. They're not going to keep this livery forever and always, even though compositionally, I mean, it is pretty hard to get wrong, right? Whether it's 2026 regulations, whether it's pre-ground effect regulations, like it's a banger every single time. That matte navy finish, you know what, in the past I haven't been so sure about that, but actually now I feel like there's a, you know, the yellow and the red of the Red Bull branding seems to be slightly more glossy. I think it is anyway. And then the exposed carbon on the rear wing, kind of that gives a little bit of sheen to it as well. There's just brilliant contrast here. The contrast is what really sells this, makes it work. The white Oracle on the side, then the red Red Bull text, separating that from the Honda. Rocked is separated enough that it's not tripping over the other logos on the side. It's just all really, really well balanced and well put together. Even more so with time, I think I just come to appreciate that, man, you're seeing other teams chop and change constantly. Red Bull just put the same thing out every year, and it's just slight refinements, you know, and they're just making it better each time. I really think so. So I'm full of praise for it, but where do I put it in my rankings? Well, we're going to get rid of this one, right? We're going to start again because these renders, man, these renders have tripped me up big time, I've got to say. Look, let's start from the bottom. My least favorite livery, now that we've actually seen through day one of testing in Bahrain what these cars actually look like. Starting with P10. And unfortunately, it's still Williams. Okay, we've seen it on track. There's a couple of angles that it looks decent, and I've said it before, I say it again, I don't think there's any bad liveries this year. From the back corner angle, I kind of like the Williams, but that navy front end just doesn't do anything for me. It's got very, very little legibility and recognition from that front angle that we see so often, right? Again, Bahrain testing is a good way of seeing these cars from the camera angles that we're actually going to see them in real life, right? Then in P9, unchanged still, I'm going Aston Martin. Look, they've kind of taken a sledgehammer to what was a fantastic livery. Look, it's still not a bad livery. Again, it's still not a bad livery, but last year's was so good. For them to really, really downgrade it is a crying shame. It really is. And yeah, just on track, front angle wise, it looks very good, but the side profile, the side rear quarter, it's just not doing anything for me. Better than the Williams, yes, it's a bit more distinctive. I've not got much positive to say about the Aston Martin, I'm afraid. Sorry. Then in P8, moving one position down from where I had them originally, the Haas. Now this is really tight, right? Because honestly, from the side profile and that rear quarter, I think this looks really good. Like I got very little to complain about with the Haas. And even that white nose that I lambasted in my Haas redesign video, it's not as bad in real life, but it's still not great. The MoneyGram sponsor kind of gives it that point to its nose almost, but it's still too busy. That nose still spoils what otherwise I think is a really good livery, and it would be at least a couple of places higher, honestly, without the white nose just holding it back. Then in P7, you're going to be happy about this because it's the Sauber. I was so wrong These renders just completely, they broke my ankles, you know, Steph Curry-esque, just got me gassed, got me excited. This bright green, quite a glossy, shiny base as well, with this lovely gradient into this really rich, deep, dark black. And then we see the car in person in real life, and it's a matte green that's bright, but when it's matte finish, it doesn't really have that absolute neon lairiness to it. And the gradient is rubbish. And we saw this on the car at F1 75, and I was hopeful that, you know what, okay, they've kind of butchered the gradient at F1 75, but the renders look great. I'm sure on the real car it's going to look fantastic. It's not even fully gradiented. There's like a solid transition. Sauber, you had the potential to make something so good here. I really drunk the Kool-Aid, the green Kool-Aid. Considering those problems, I still like the fact that it's green from the front and the black at the back. Fundamentally, I still like that, but the execution is nowhere near as nice as it looked in the renders. So I've got to put my hands up. You were right, I was wrong. I'll take the L on that one. That's a low moment, if we've ever seen one. So Sauber have dropped from P1 to P7. In P6, I'm putting Ferrari. I think seeing it on track, look, the white with the HP is still too big, but it's not as bad as I initially thought it was, okay? And even the Fiorano shots didn't show it off. But there's certain angles where the Ferrari does still slap, and it's like that really nice dark deep red. Seeing it on the onboard, seeing it from the different cameras that pick it up going around Bahrain, it is much better than it was. P6 though, it's an improvement from where I put it before. P5, I've gone with McLaren. Now the papaya does pop, and it is a very honest homage, because again, it's not really changed since last year, right? So even looking at the renders, I knew what last year's McLaren looked like in the same way I knew what Red Bull's car looked like last year. So there were no big surprises, right? The McLaren's nice, it's cool, it's decent, it's well put together. For me, it's not like, oh my God, I love it. It's cool, it's all right, it's fine. I'd like to see the McLaren logo on the front be bigger. That's probably my biggest critique. It's good, and it's fifth, and that's fine. P4, and this was a difficult one, right? This top four was tricky for me, I've got to be honest. I've gone with Alpine, and I do like the onboard shot of the Alpine is fantastic. The blue and the pink is really strong from the onboard camera. I still don't like it bang front on, to be honest, but from pretty much every other angle, I really like it. That shimmering blue, especially in the Bahrain sunset, that was, yeah, really nice. And the pink does have that little bit of almost Tommo redness to it. The studio shots are unbelievable, by the way, but again, the car in real life also looks fantastic. I think they've done a really good job. Well done, Alpine. P4 it is. Then in P3, I'm putting Red Bull Racing. Now, part of this is because it's not new and different and exciting as much as the top two in this list are, for me anyway. It's a fantastic livery. If it wasn't for it not being new and exciting, it'd probably be higher, to be honest, but there's something cool about seeing a new take on a livery, right? There's nothing I'd change about the Red Bull, honestly. It's fantastic. And well, I'm going to change things about the Red Bull because I'm going to do my redesign in a bit, but it's going to be one of those redesigns where I just change a few little things, see if it maybe makes it a little bit better, but I don't expect to improve on something that's this good. So then P2 for me is the Mercedes. Now, when they put the studio renders out of this, I was like, wow, that looks sick. But obviously that was after I did my Mercedes redesign. We'd only seen the rubbish F1 75 imagery of the car to that point. And then we saw it on track. I've got to say, this is my favorite Mercedes since the 2019 one. I think it looks fantastic. Just little things where they've brought the Mercedes logo up the nose a little bit higher and getting rid of the red, the Ineos red, and just having the silver, black and Petronas teal. It's just stealthy, man. I think this looks sick. I really love this Mercedes. I think it looks fantastic. Like, it's not a big showstopper in terms of bright colours and that, but it just looks slick and mean. They've not butchered the gradient like Sauber have. Generally speaking, the way they've implemented the silver to black fade is pretty good. And even the Mercedes stars on the back. You know what? Seeing the car in person, actually, not in person, obviously, on the telly. I'm not in Bahrain, funnily enough. I'm actually kind of warm into it. I think it looks great. I love the Mercedes. It's fantastic. So you're P2, but not quite P1. Of course, P1 is the Racing Bulls. They were P2 before the Sauber absolutely tanked. Yeah, it looks fantastic on track. that white with that Red Bull branding. Look, again, Red Bull looks fantastic with the bright yellow and red contrasting to the deep, dark, bluey purple. The Racing Bulls is showing where you can use the same yellow and red Red Bull branding and contrast it with this bright white, and you can get away with having the Visa Cash App, or Visa in blue, Cash App with green. It's not as good as the Turkey 2020 Red Bull, by the way. That was unbelievable, and that was just white, red. That's the perfect version of what Racing Bulls are getting at. But yeah, well done. You win. Anyway, I spent far too long on that. Time to look at my redesign, my final redesign of the 2025 Formula 1 season. Thank you very much for supporting these videos and watching what I do. I'm glad you've enjoyed them seemingly, whether they've been good or bad, wommos or lommos. Get in the comments and let me know what you think of this one. Because my name's Tommo and this is my redesign of the 2025 Red Bull Formula 1 car. So what do you think? Very similar to the real thing in many ways, very different in a few important ones. So what's the same, first of all? Well, the Red Bull branding on the airbox and the way that kind of goes into the headrest with the yellow, I've kept identical. Rocked Honda, Mobile 1, Mobile here, one password. A lot of the sponsor placement I've kept identical. However, there are a few changes, and there's not much you can change on the Red Bull to make it better, but I think this would be a welcome difference. The main thing is that Oracle and Red Bull I've swapped on the side pod. So Red Bull is now big and in red on the side pod. Oracle takes this position here behind the Red Bull in white, and we've added this kind of line in here, this kind of red that runs throughout the car along the nose as well down here. Now from this point of view, again, that's pretty much the only change from this angle. I've also put this in more of a matte to match the real car, which I should have been doing more in these redesigns, to be honest, because I can do a pretty basic kind of matte to glossy change in the livery. I just haven't because I'm an idiot, but there you go. We come around to the front and you can see I've ditched the red and the ball on the front wing and also moved the balls from here to the side of the nose to on the front wing. I think it's kind of works. It's maybe not as good as the real thing. It's probably definitely not as good as the real thing, where you've got the really long yellow nose, but it's kind of stubbed that nose up a little bit. It's still pretty significantly yellow at the front. And then we've got the Red Bull logo in the middle, and then Oracle on the front wing. Now, of course, where we've moved Oracle off of the big prominence side pod positioning, downgraded it there somewhat. I've made up for it by putting it here and here, and also on the back of the rear wing, we've put Oracle in white against the navy with a nice red strip at the top to kind of match the red we've got going on down here. If I'm going to downgrade one sponsor, I'm going to be like, well, I'm going to make it up to you, can't speak today, elsewhere, okay, to try and accommodate, to try and be realistic with these. Sponsors on the nose are the same. I feel like I've got a bit more space now because I've not got the yellow coming up so high, so I can spread these logos out a bit more. I feel like in the real car, they're all a bit squished together. Tags in the same place, Oracle, Red Bull in the same place, AT&T's in the same place. Yeah, pretty much everything else. Ava Trade, Oracle, that's kind of all in the same place. Visas, yeah. Red Bull on the back, like I say, homologate. Everyone should have their name, the team name, on the back of their rear wing for identifiability purposes. Also, oh, did you see, by the way, the news? Monaco mandating a two-stop, which I've been banging on about for literally years. If you've been here for that long watching my stuff, you will know full well I've been banging on about that for years. So, I mean, it better work, otherwise I'm going to look like a right mug. But in terms of working, I think this worked pretty well. You know what? Do I think it's better than the real thing? I mean, having the big Red Bull on the side pods and having that more dominant than the Oracle is a bit of a retro throwback. I don't like it more than the real thing, but I probably don't like it any less either. Why am I saying my opinion? Because that doesn't matter. Like I've said so many times, what matters is your opinion. So please let me know in the comments down below what you think of this redesign. Thank you again for enabling me to do these videos now for God knows how many years I've been doing the livery redesigns and making this a part of my living ultimately. And it's kind of a fun way to kick off the new season. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who watches and supports what I do. Also leads to pretty cool opportunities like this, which you'll be able to watch very soon. My name's Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.